George, this is going to sound like a simple question, but I know there's a complex answer. But what is the stomach's role in digestion?
Wow.
Is that a big one?
It's a big one. It's a big organ. It's a big bagpipe. Normally, when it's empty, it has only 45 milliliters inside of different juices, but it can accept 1.5 liters, that's 3 pints.
3 pints.
In volume of food. But there are people who go into contest with hot dogs or hamburgers or French fries or whatever you...
Or watermelon.
Or watermelon, and who can fill up to 5 liters. That means a gallon.
Wow.
So the stomach, if it has a little bit of space around, can expand quite significantly. The other thing that people don't realize is that the stomach is a disinfectant.
No, I didn't know that.
Well, most of the food we eat, especially if we eat raw food, is contaminated with bacteria.
Okay.
Or viruses or parasites. The stomach, it has a pH, an acidity, which is one of the strongest nature has made. It's like sulfuric acid. The pH is between 1 and 2.
That is low, yeah.
Yes, and this acid is absolutely essential to save us from gastrointestinal infections first, and sometimes like typhoid fever, the salmonella get into our system and kills. Still, a lot of people die in the world from every day from gastrointestinal infections. And some of the time, especially in the elderly, when the production of this acid is reduced, people get more problems. And they get more problems down under. That means in the colon or in the small intestine.
And this is common, isn't it?
This is very common. This is very common. You ask people over 70 or 80, and they say, if I make the slightest mistake, I'm going to spend most of the night in the toilet. And it's not fun. And it also, if you get a lot of diarrhea, you eliminate some minerals and some fluids.
Electrolytes.
Yes. The second rule is that the stomach has movements. And these movements go like circular and vertically. Circular, it breaks the food that we didn't masticate very well. It's important because you get particles or big particles of food in your stomach, and when it has to be sent down to the small intestine, it should be semi-liquid or liquid, like
like a paste.
A very liquid paste.
Okay.
And this is mechanical.
Okay. Mechanical.
Like the third is that the stomach secretes a number of products which blends with the food and helps for digestion and even more. For instance, there is a substance called pepsinogen, which is secreted in the stomach, and with the acid.
With the acid, okay.
It is transformed into an enzyme, which is called pepsin, and this enzyme chews up, digests proteins. So instead of having a big piece of beef or chicken or tofu that gets into your small intestine, you get something which is much smaller and much easier to be attacked by other enzymes and eventually absorbed as amino acids. Second, another substance that is very important, it's called the intrinsic factor. Well, it's a long story, but this factor is made in the stomach. And again, I'm going to tell you something which is not very good news, but we'll go around it. this intrinsic factor is essential for our absorption of vitamin B12. If we don't have the intrinsic factor, we can take as much vitamin B12 orally, it will end up in the toilet bowl.
Okay.
So to absorb it, we need the intrinsic factor. Now the bad news is that nothing improves with age except great Bordeaux wines. Right.
All right.
Okay.
Nothing?
Nothing. I looked around and you know, and even great red wines or great Sauternes have a life expectancy which is not eternal. But the stomach ages, and with age, the production of intrinsic factor is being reduced. And that's why a number of people in psychiatric institutions who look demented and who are diagnosed as demented have in fact a B12 deficiency. Well, they can utilize B12, but because their stomach is old and doesn't make the intrinsic factor, they don't absorb it, so they need the shots. And if they get the shots, they get out of the psychiatric institution and they come back home and say, I don't know where I was, but I feel much better. Finally, the stomach makes every day about 3 liters of liquid. And much of this liquid is mucus.
All right.
And this mucus is the coating inside that protects the mucosa, the inside of the stomach, from being attacked by the acid. You know, if you take the acid of the stomach and you put it in your skin, you're going to have a hole.
Okay.
So it protects the stomach from the acid and from the pepsin, which digests meat, because the mucosa is meat. So you have a very well balanced organ that helps you and I to remain healthy. And if you disturb this balance, you're going to pay a price.
And exactly what is the intrinsic factor? Is it like an enzyme?
It's a protein. It's a protein that works with the B12 to make it
I see.
recognize some receptors that allows the B12, the cyanocobalamin, to get through the intestinal tract into our system and goes to the bone marrow and to the brain.
And to the brain.
It's a very important organ. And what is also interesting is that the stomach, along the millennia of humankind, has grown very smart to resist all the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune and all the aggressions that people want to impose on it. And for instance, we thought that the stomach would be very reactive to stress, because if you take a rat or a mouse and you attach it like this, and you wait for the rat either to die or you sacrifice it, and you look at its stomach, it's full of ulcers. It's true that
Rats have ulcers?
yes, stress ulcers.
They have stress ulcers.
But humans don't usually get stress ulcers. And the only 2 documented dramatic episodes when some people got ulcers attributable to stress were the Blitz in London, when the Germans sent all these V1 and V2s. And the second one was the bombing of Dresden in Germany by the Allies that essentially destroyed the city and killed dozens of thousands of people. Conversely, and it's very interesting, I think, when the American Air Force, the US Air Force, bombed and burnt Tokyo to the ground with about 350,000 people who died there, and essentially destroyed the city in 1945, early 45. The Japanese population who survived didn't get ulcers of the stomach. So there is, and I think it's important, and we can talk about ulcer another
Right.
time.
But they did not get ulcers?
No.
Okay.
So that tells you that our stomach is generally, for everybody, a very healthy organ and very resistant to whatever you want to attack it with. But there are people, you know, everybody is okay, but some people are better than others.